Financially raw, real, authentic wisdom with Lourens from Retire Rich and Happy. Financially raw, real, authentic wisdom with Lourens from Retire Rich and Happy.
Morning for me. So welcome. There's the live people are on now as well. So welcome all the live people. Today is going to be a very exciting and interesting morning for me. I'm doing the show live in studio on my own. While I'm at the same time going to share it live on Facebook. We're going to share it live on YouTube. I'm going to have some internet browsers on. We're going to talk about an article that was submitted on the internet on the Business Insider. I think we'll chat about that now. And so there's a lot happening. So if I get a little bit flustered or I'm all over the place, please bear with me. I am doing my best, but I'm very excited to share this this morning with you. As usual, we're going to talk a lot of interesting stuff. We're going to learn some things about money in our show, Financially Raw. Also, if I just want to welcome the guys from I think it's the Lourens Willow Park community group on Facebook that's joining us this morning as well. It's the Helderkrein, Lourens and Willow Park community Facebook group joining us this morning as well. Just want to welcome you guys and thank you for allowing us to share it live on your group, and I hope you guys will benefit. And if you do, if this is the first time you are watching me, welcome. I really appreciate you guys listening to me, and I hope you benefit from today. We're going to have an interesting discussion, and if you benefit, please sign in again next week, Thursday, so that we can share that with you. Now, unfortunately, on Facebook and on YouTube, we cannot do the music that I will do on Berg Studio. So if you want to get some music as well, you are welcome to go onto bergstudio.co.za and listen to the show live on Berg Studio as well. And there we can play some music today. I've got a nice selection of music that we're going to play in the middle. The guys that are watching on Facebook and on YouTube, unfortunately I can't play music. They do not allow me to. So what we're going to do is we will have short videos of some tips and tricks that I've done on previous shows. So you can listen to those, get some ideas on budgeting, get some ideas on tax, etc., etc. So without further ado, let's get going, and we'll do our first music break. And our first music break on mix, we're going to listen to Turn Up the Radio from Autograph. So the first thing I want to tell guys is, as you start earning some income, you need to immediately start learning how to budget. Guys, your budget is extremely, extremely important. You must remember, most people think that budgeting is a predictor of the future. But budgeting is about 80% looking backwards and only 20% looking forward. So you need to look at your budget every single month, but look backwards first. Remember, you cannot predict or plan where your money is going next if you don't know where it's gone. So that is important to understand. You need to get a system to budget properly. Now, as our coaching system works, we teach people through our strategic expense planning how to do a proper budget. So it is very important that you understand that you need to budget. You have to give every rand a job. You need to make sure that you know where your money is going, because you cannot build financial stability if you don't have control over your cash flow. all the other problems that come over time, the debt problems, the problems of maintaining your standard of living, all of those problems can be solved if you take complete control of your cash flow from the get-go, from when you start earning your first income. So as you go, what you want to do is when you get your first salary, you want to write out, you want to work through your budget of what's going to happen in the month that is coming. At the end of that month, you want to sit down and look back on the month and really look at where your money went. You also want to set up 2 accounts. Now, this is what we teach our students in our coaching, is you want to set up 2 accounts. We call the one account your fixed cost account and the other account your variable cost account. So your fixed cost account is where your income is paid into, your salary gets paid into that account. That is typically a check account. If you don't have a check account yet, you can make that a transmission account, but that is your account where your fixed cost comes out of. So your fixed cost are all the expenses that you pay every month. That is fixed, like rent that you pay, things like a mobile phone account, all those things that are roughly the same every single month is paid out of your fixed cost account. Then you create a variable cost budget. So let's say your variable cost budget for the month is 5,000 Rand. You then transfer your variable cost budget's money into your variable cost account. That is your second account that you have. This is where all your transactions happen. This is if you go to buy groceries, you use your variable cost account. If you go put fuel in your car, you use your variable cost account. So those are all the expenses that are not fixed that you are spending. You do not spend anything out of your fixed cost account except your fixed cost. And you need to then see if you can keep within your budget for your variable cost. So that if in the second month, let's say your variable cost was 5,000 Rand, your budget for the first month, but you only spent 3,000 Rand. Then the next month to get you back up to 5,000 in your variable cost, you only have to transfer 3,000 Rand to bring you back up to 5. Which means in your fixed cost account, you have an extra 2,000 Rand lying in your fixed cost account. And that money is then used to start investing or start building your reserve account, which I will talk about a little bit later. So guys, it is extremely important that you understand that you do a proper budget first. That is the key thing. So the first thing I want to tell. And we are back. I'm just waiting for the music to end on the live radio, and then we'll add Berg Studio back onto the feed. Let's just quickly go in there.
Financially raw, real,
just do the intro on Berg Studio, and then we are ready for the guys that are live on Facebook. So welcome everybody. Welcome back on the Berg Studio listeners. Welcome to all the Facebook Live people, the YouTube Live people. Really appreciate you joining with me. We had some issues with the mic on Berg Studio. So for those of you who haven't heard me in the beginning, we are doing a simulcast at the same time. We are broadcasting on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and Berg's. A lot of balls to juggle at the same time. So if there's a few hiccups, just excuse me. So before we get going with the topic for today, I want to share some of the news, and there was been some positive news on the finance front in South Africa over the last week. The first one is the fact that the economy has actually grown in the first quarter of this year by about 1.9%, which is a big positive. So it's something to be excited about and positive about, is the fact that our economy has grown. We are basically back at pre-pandemic levels with the economy and our BBP. So it sounds good. We are moving in the right direction, which is a positive. Also, unemployment has decreased by 0.8%, which is also a very big positive. It is so important for us to start cutting unemployment as much as possible. What we must just understand, and this is from my side, is we cannot expect government to create jobs. We cannot expect government to push down unemployment. They are never going to do it. We will have to get small and medium enterprises to work towards reducing unemployment, creating jobs, creating economic growth. That's what's going to build up the country's economy. So that's one of those things. Unfortunately, food inflation is still at 6.2%, and the fuel price, we all hear about the fuel price. The fuel price is up by over 30% from last year. So that is definitely going to have an effect on the food prices, the inflation. And to curb that, the Reserve Bank has started putting up interest rates. So we just have to take a look and make sure that those interest rates don't hurt our cash flow. I read another interesting article. There was a survey done each year. A company called Just Money does a check between the different supermarkets on where you can buy the cheapest food, which supermarket is the cheapest. So I just want to share that with you. So they take a basket. The basket has 1 loaf of white bread in it, a small bunch of bananas, 2.5 kilograms worth of sugar. It has 80 rooibos tea bags, 1 liter long life milk, 2 liter oil, 410 grams of beans, 9 rolls of toilet paper, 2.25 liter Coke, one of those, 16 pieces of chicken, 2 kilograms of potatoes, 2 kilograms of white rice, and 2 kilograms of Sunlight washing powder. So they have that basket and they compare it across the different supermarkets. So the interesting thing is Woolworths, they came in at 624 Rand and 19 cents for that basket. Second place was Checkers at 521 Rand and 6 cents. So yeah, so Woolworths was over 100 Rand more expensive for that basket than going to Checkers. So those of you, the Woolies fans, it might be something to consider starting to just pop into one of the other supermarkets. And then the cheapest one, which the previous year I don't think was the cheapest, but the cheapest one at this stage is Pick n Pay at 519 Rand and 91 cents. So the difference between Checkers and Pick n Pay, not huge, but a supermarket like Woolworths is very, very expensive, over 100 Rand more expensive for the same batch of groceries. So use that, don't use it. I would definitely consider going to one of the cheaper supermarkets to buy your day-to-day stuff. I know a lot of people feel that they want to buy the fruits and veg at Woolworths, which is really, their quality is very good. But yeah, you need to look at your bottom line as well and see if it's worthwhile, especially if it's exactly the same brands. Like for example, if you the rooibos tea, if you buy exactly the same rooibos tea at Checkers than you would at Woolworths, why pay the extra just to go into a store that's a little bit better laid out? So that's just a little bit of news in the country at this stage. So what are we going to talk about today? So there was an article that was sent to me, and I'm going to share this article with you quickly. Those of you on the radio, you unfortunately won't be able to see the article, but I will read the topic. The article says how much you need to save to retire comfortably in South Africa. And it was an article placed in a Business Tech on the 4th of June. So I want to read through this article because this is something that I've been telling people for many years. And it's something that we tend to want to do the whole ostrich approach. We want to put our head in the sand and think if this is not going to happen to us. So this is statistics that was put up. It's an article in Business Tech. It's not me saying it. But I also want to make some comments as we go through this morning on this article and give you my point of view, firstly, on what they are saying there, and secondly, to just put it into context, and thirdly, to give you my solutions instead of the solutions that you are given from the insurance companies, the financial services companies, etc., etc. So it says around half of South Africans do not have a retirement plan, while as few as 6% are able to retire comfortably. Now, we've got a little bit of a different slant on our statistics. So the first thing, it is the truth. Half of South Africans don't have a retirement plan at all. So just think a little bit about that. That that over 50% of people that you work with, that you see, have no retirement plan. This means we are heading towards a massive cliff. At some point, these people, you included, will have to retire. What are you going to do about it? And it says, while as few as 6% are able to retire comfortably. Now, this is a statistic that is thrown around quite a bit about people being able to retire comfortably. The one statistic that they don't really focus on here is the fact that they check it when people are actually retiring, at that point when they retire, and they say that 6% are able to retire comfortably. Now, that in itself is a very scary statistic, to think that only 6% of people can retire comfortably. But what they don't talk about is what happens a few years after retirement. And that's where our statistic that we share with people comes in, that 96% of people who retire cannot maintain their standard of living within 5 years after retirement. So a lot of these people that feel they can retire comfortably for the first year or so. But then after 5 years, they have to start downscaling, selling their house, getting another job to start earning an income, maybe not being able to afford their medical aid anymore. All of those things that happen. Janine Horn, a financial advisor from Momentum, said that burying one's head in the sand and hoping for the best is not a solid retirement funding strategy, which I agree with Janine 100%. Guys, you have to face the monster. You have to, if you really want to do something about your retirement and about your future, you have to face the scary monster head on and find solutions. The problem is that most people face is, what are those solutions? And we'll talk a little bit as we go through this article this morning. We're going to talk a little bit about the solutions, the traditional solutions that we are taught to use, and then what we do to help people to solve the retirement crisis. A report from Genesis Analytics in partnership with the Financial Sector Conduct Authority, the FSCA. So for those of you who don't know, the FSCA is the institution that regulates the financial services industry. That showed that 90% of South African retirees cannot maintain their standard of living prior to retirement, and 2/3 of members have less than 50,000 Rand in their retirement fund. So guys, that one, 2/3 of members. So this is members to retirement pension funds, retirement annuities. 2/3. So 66% of people have less than 50,000 Rand in their retirement fund. Just let that sink in a little bit. Less than 50,000 Rand. What can you do with 50,000 Rand these days? The FSCA noted that despite the average value of benefits being paid out increasing since 2017, obviously with inflation, the average contribution to pension funds has remained relatively stable at around 900 Rand per month in real terms. Now guys, to be completely honest with you, 900 Rand per month saved is not going to make a huge dent in anybody's retirement plan. When comparing pension fund coverage, 92% of workers in the public sector have a retirement product, where roughly only 50% of workers in the private sector have a retirement product, said the FSCA. Now, it doesn't quite stack up these statistics to the statistics they quoted at the top, where they say that 50% of South Africans have no retirement plan. Because if you take 92 and you take 50, you won't get to 50% of all workers. But the fact still stays that 92% of workers in the public sector have a retirement product. So these are guys that are on the government employees pension fund. Now, if you are one of these people that work on the government employees pension fund, that is, I think, as far as my knowledge goes, that's the only defined benefit fund still in existence in South Africa, which is even better than when we look at the 50% of workers in the private sector who are mostly 99.99999%, just for in case I missed one, on defined contribution funds. So let me just quickly take 2 minutes and explain the difference between a defined benefit and a defined contribution fund. So a defined benefit fund, you contribute and the company contributes. That money goes into a fund, but it's not specifically your money. The company guarantees you a pension at the end of your working life, dependent on what income you earned before you went on pension and how many years of service you had. So they guarantee you a percentage of your average final salary for the rest of your life after your period of work. So the risk for funding that sits with the employer. So it sits with the government. They have to fund it. If they don't have enough money, it's their risk. A defined contribution fund, which is mostly used in the private sector, you contribute to the fund, the company contributes to the fund, and whatever value is in that fund, you then get at the end of the term. You invest that funds to generate an income. If that is not enough to survive or to fund your retirement, it is not the company's responsibility. So all of that responsibility sits on your side. So obviously the defined benefit fund is more beneficial for employees, where the defined contribution is more beneficial for employers. And in today's world, I don't even know if you can still get defined benefit funds through normal umbrella funds through the big insurance companies. The most recent 10x South African retirement reality report shows that 38% of the 15 million economically active South Africans, so this is households with a monthly salary of more than 8,000 Rand, strongly agree that they will need to keep earning money after retirement. A further 36% agreed in part to that statement. So in total, about 74% of people think that they will definitely or might need to still keep earning an income after they have to retire. Now, I promise you that it's even more, because a lot of people have no idea. They have a feeling and they have hope. We always share with people that these things, most of these retirement planning, most of your risk planning is done on hope. People say, I hope that if I get there, I will be okay. If you really want to succeed, if you really want to sort out your retirement, you need to move from hope to certainty. You have to face the monster, look at everything, and make sure that you understand exactly where you are, because you can't do anything on the outcome if you don't know where you are at the moment. So if you want to meet with somebody to help you through this, help you get a clearer picture, you're welcome to contact us at www.retirehappy.co.za is our website, or you can email us at info@retirehappy.co.za. Okay, the proportion of people who expect to keep earning in retirement is particularly worrying, considering South Africa's alarming unemployment figures. So what they're saying there is that the fact that so many people are expecting to still be employed after retirement is worrying, because we're sitting with, I think it's about 35% unemployment. So how are we going to keep employing these people that's supposed to be retired? The report details that a large portion of South Africans, 25%, expect the same standard of living after retiring, while 79% of respondents worry about having enough to live on after they retire, and 74% expect to need some additional income. Okay, so again, a very high percentage feels that they're still going to need some income. 79% of people are worried. Well, if we look at the statistic of 96% of people not being able to maintain their standard of living, I think that 79% needs to be a little bit higher. And then 25% expect the same standard of living. So guys, here's when I came in, and we'll talk about that when I come back, is this 75% replacement ratio. When I started in the financial services industry in 1999, that's 23 years ago, we were told about the replacement ratio. And that was one of the things that triggered my thought process of, is this really the best that we can hope for after 40 years of work? So we're going to take a music break. For those of you who are listening on Berg Studio, we're going to listen to some music. Those of you who are watching me live on Facebook and on YouTube, I'll have a short video that we're going to show while we show the music. And then when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about this 75% replacement ratio. So let's listen to Calling You from Blue October.
Something that I can't quite explain.
Okay, secondly, you need to immediately start managing your credit score. Guys, your credit score is something that will follow you throughout your life. That is the score that that the credit bureaus give you to see how well you manage your credit and how much you qualify for credit. So if you later want to buy a house, want to buy a car, this will determine what your interest rate is, which can save you thousands if you get a better interest rate on your house. On your car, it can save you thousands if you want to buy a car. So your credit score is extremely important. So what I would suggest you do is, as soon as you start working, when you get your first salary, go download an app called Clear Score. It's from the Google Play Store. You register on that app, and on that app you can see your credit score as it goes and up and down. And make sure that you know what your credit score is, and do things that will increase your credit score, and don't do things that will decrease your credit score. Now, to understand credit, you need to understand the difference between secured debt and unsecured debt. So let's look at secured debt first. Secured debt is debt that is underwritten by or underlined by an asset. So for example, if you buy a house, the house stands surety for the loan. It's an underlying asset that gives values for the loan. So therefore, because there's an underlying asset, the risk for the bank is lower than if they just give you a credit card, for example. So because the risk is lower, your interest rate is usually much lower on a house than it is on a personal loan or on a credit card. The same applies to when you buy a car. So that is called secured debt. That is the lowest interest rate debt. The killer is unsecured debt or consumer debt. Unsecured debt is any debt that a bank or an institution, a credit provider, gives you without any security. So for example, a credit card, an overdraft, a personal loan, clothing accounts, furniture accounts, all of those things are unsecured debt. Because even if it's a furniture, you buy a lounge suite, that lounge suite cannot stand surety for the debt, because the lounge suite cannot be sold for an asset that will make up that debt, because it loses value so quickly. So that is unsecured debt. Guys, this is the debt that kills your cash flow. It's firstly the most expensive debt, because you're paying the highest amount of interest on that debt. And secondly, it is the debt that usually eats up most of your cash flow, because your payment per month for that debt is much higher per 1,000 Rand that you owe than you would pay on a bond, for example, or a mortgage, for example. So you will always want to keep your unsecured debt as low as possible, preferably at zero. Your secured debt you're going to use to buy a house, to buy a car, to invest in the future. You can use secured debt to invest in property, for example. But unsecured debt, that is where people get into trouble. Now, what's important to understand is that getting into trouble with debt, it doesn't happen overnight. It's not a once-off event. People that get into trouble in debt, it happens slowly over time. It's 1,000 Rand here and 1,000 Rand there, and then this happens, and it's small amounts incrementally building up over time. So welcome back everyone on Facebook Live. Good to see you all. The people listening on Berg Studio, we listen to Calling You from Blue October. So if you are listening on Facebook Live and you want to listen to the music as well, you can go to bergstudio.co.za, or you can just listen to which songs we play and then go play it on YouTube Music or Apple iTunes or whatever, and you can hear what we are listening to. Anyway, so before we left, we were speaking about the article and talking about the 75% replacement ratio. I got a question here on Berg Studio from Warren. Warren says, "Hi Lourens, I'm funding my own retirement via RA. Is it better to do an upfront bulk contribution at the beginning of the year and get the tax benefits immediately, or have a monthly debit order and take advantage of the dollar cost averaging? In this case, I'm maxing out my RA at 27.5% of my taxable income." So yes, Warren, so for me, it's going to be better to do a monthly contribution. It's the tax benefits will be the same if it's the same amount. Whether you do it upfront or you do it over the year, the percentage of tax benefit that you get is exactly the same thing. But what you're talking about is the buy-sell spread that is very important, and the rand cost averaging or the dollar cost averaging that you're talking about. So let me just explain it to the listeners. So what happens is, if you take a lump sum and you buy into the market, you are actually buying shares, units, if it's a unit trust, at a specific price in that period of time. So what then happens is, you are then in for the roller coaster, because all your money then goes up and down as the markets go up and down. Where if you spread it over 12 months and you buy shares or units every month by having a contribution, you're buying units when the market is up and you're buying units when the market is down, which balances out your return and your roller coaster ride over the period of time, over the year. Because you're buying in when the markets are down, you're actually buying at discounted prices. When the markets are up, you're buying at a little bit of a higher price, but it all averages out, where you might put your 100% contribution in beginning of the year and the markets are up. Like beginning of this year, we had a nice spike in the markets, and you might have put your whole contribution in at that point. Then Russia decided to invade the Ukraine and the market went to a bear market again, and we had a collapse. Now, if you put all your money in at the point when we reached that peak, all your money would have been reducing in value, and you would go down that roller coaster. So if you buy units every month, as the markets fell, you would have bought units at a lower price. So for your 1,000 Rand that you're putting in, you might have gotten at the peak, you might have gotten 1,000 units, but now you're getting 2,000 units because the market fell by 50%. So I hope that answers your question. Again, if you're not going to do it monthly, you have the money available, and if you're not going to do it, you're going to spend it, then rather put the money in and get it out of your account. But if you have the option and you have the discipline, then rather do a monthly contribution to your RA instead of doing it as a lump sum. So I hope that answers your question. So let's get to the replacement ratio. So they say here, to retire comfortably depends on personal circumstances. However, a 75% replacement ratio is considered a reasonable target for members in general. Said Vicky Lang, head of Alexander Forbes Research. So let's just talk about that replacement ratio. What that means is that you should, according to them, aim to have 75% of your after-tax income after you retire than you had before you retired. So the month just before you retire, if you're earning 10,000 Rand, then the month after retirement, you want to aim to earn 7,500 Rand. When I listened to this, I always looked at it and said, but just, is this absolutely the best we can hope for? That if we do everything correct for 40 years, we save as much as we can, the best you can hope for is 75% of your salary. For me, that just didn't make sense. So I wanted to create ways to fix that, to improve that, because surely your retirement should be your golden years. It should be the years when you enjoy yourself. not where you have to live on 75% of your salary. Now, what they say then is they say on average, members should contribute 17% of their salary over 40 years towards their retirement savings to achieve 75%. Now, the first thing is when I came into the industry in 1999, that 17% was 15%. Now it's gone to 17%. Secondly, how many people actually does this? They start working at 25 after studying and they contribute 17% of their gross salary. So please keep that in mind. It's not your net salary. It's 17% of your gross salary over 40 years to retire with only 75%. Guys, I don't want to be funny, but that doesn't make sense to me. A 75% ratio means that for every 1,000 Rand earned before retirement, you are targeting to replace 750 Rand as an income. Personal circumstances will influence the target replacement ratio for each person. Therefore, 75% is used as an approximation for members on average. According to the Alexander Forbes Member Insights, we explored the retirement savings habits of income-earning South Africans. The average person can replace just 31% of their income with retirement savings. So just keep that in mind. Think about this for a moment. The average South African can only replace 31%. So if you are an average South African and you are earning 10,000 Rand a month now, you are on track to retire with 3,100 Rand a month before tax. So this is meaning that after working for many years, the majority will have to live on less than a third of their pre-retirement income. When deciding at what age to start saving for retirement, Langer noted that the later in life you start to save, the higher the contribution rate will need to be to achieve the goal of 75%. So guys, the reality is this. It's not just the later you start, the higher the contribution. If you don't start by at least 30 and contribute at least 20%, you are not going to retire through savings alone. And this is my biggest issue with the industry, is they are teaching us that savings alone is going to get you to retirement. And unfortunately, it is not going to. For example, with reference to the graph below, if you start saving 17% from age 40, you might achieve a 38% replacement ratio. This means only replacing 380 Rand as an income during retirement for every 1,000 Rand earned. So here they show you the different contributions. So it's 9%, 10%, 11, 13, 15, and 17, and the different ages in starting. So you start at 20, contributing 17% will give you 90% replacement. If you start at 25, it will give you 75%. If you start at 30, it will give you only 60%. Start at 35, it will give you 50%. Start at 40, 40%, and so on. If you start at 55, by age 65, you would only have replaced 10% of your income if you contribute 17%. That is a scary, scary statistic. The 15% minimum rule. Global investment management firm T. Rowe Price said that contributing as much as one can as early as possible will assist in reaching retirement savings goals. The firm recommends that you aim to save at least 15% of your income annually, and they further suggest that by the time you are 45, you should have saved up at least 3 times your salary. If you are 55, 7 times your salary, and if you're 65, 11 times your pre-retirement salary. So if you're listening to this, have a look at your salary, have a look at your savings, and see where you are. If you look at those tracking figures. The problem I have with this is that, okay, so the advice is that you should start saving as young as possible. It's that you should be saving at least 15%. But what if you are not young anymore? What if you are 40? What if you are 45? What is their solution? So now you've missed out on it. You didn't do this, which a lot of us does. So what is the solution now? And the issue is they have no solution. Basically what the financial advisors tell you, basically what the brokers tell you, and they're not going to say to your face, but with the strategy that is there, what they are basically telling you is you are screwed. If you're 45 and you haven't saved up at least 3 times your salary at this point, and you're not contributing at least 17% of your gross income, you are screwed for retirement. If you're 55, you haven't saved up 7 times your salary, and this is 7 times your annual salary. So it's not if you earn 30,000 Rand, 90,000. It's 30,000 times 3 is 360 per annum, then times 3. If you don't have that, you're screwed. That's what they're basically saying, because there's no other solution than saving. Reaching the goal will require a savings rate of around 15% over the course of your working career. Okay, so we're going to take a short music break again. And then when I come back, I'm going to talk about the 4% rule. And we have a much simpler way to use the 4% rule, but we'll chat about the 4% rule when we come back. Talk about how to calculate how much you would need for retirement. So let's have a listen to Money for Nothing from Dire Straits. Those of you listening on Facebook Live, I'll show a short video talking about how to minimize your tax. We're going to talk about tax. So yeah, they say death and taxes, the only 2 things that are certain in life. So yeah, you must understand that the moment you start working, you are going to be liable for tax. And the more you earn, the higher your tax liability. So you need to understand tax. So if you really want to be successful financially, one of the first things you have to learn is you need to learn about how tax works, and more importantly, how you can avoid or reduce your tax liability. So how can you go about making sure that you have as little tax liability as possible? Now, when you get a job and you are a typical a clerk or an admin person, or that just gets a basic salary, you are very limited to what you can do to reduce your tax liability. You basically only have the following tax deductions. You can deduct your medical expenses, and you can deduct your pension fund and retirement annuity contributions. That is it. That's all you can do. And unfortunately, what happens, you have very little control then, because what happens is you get your income, tax gets deducted, you get your net amount into your account, and you can spend the balance on your lifestyle. So what you want to do is, if you want to find ways to create more tax deductions, firstly, if you are in a position where you earn commission or you're a salesperson, you can deduct any expenses you incur in the generation of an income. You can deduct from tax. So if you are a salesperson, you drive for business, you can deduct some of your transport costs, your car maintenance, your insurance on your car. All of those kind of things then gets deducted. But what if you are a salaried individual and you don't have those deductions? Well, then you must start a part-time or a home-based business. Because the moment you have a home-based business, you open up a whole slew of deductions that you can claim back from SARS. Because again, they say that any expense you incur in the generation of an income can be deducted from income. So then you can deduct a portion of your rental because you're using a portion of your house for business purposes, like a study. A portion of your water and lights. You can deduct entertainment expenses. You can deduct fuel, maintenance costs on your car, insurance, stationery. All of those kind of things can then be deducted from your income, which means you can reduce your tax liability. So guys, get yourself a good tax lawyer or a tax accountant, tax consultant, and sit with them and let them teach you all the ways that you can minimize your tax. You know, the Bible says pay Caesar what is due, but it doesn't say pay Caesar more than is due. And I see so many times people are so afraid of SARS that they just pay and they don't ask questions. Guys, the tax rules and the tax laws have been structured in such a way to allow you to minimize your tax liability. You are not being financially clever by not looking at where you can find ways to reduce it. You have to do that if you want to win. So understand the tax laws, make sure that you have a side hustle. We usually say, especially when you're young, work from 9 to 5 to pay for your lifestyle, and from 6 to 9 in the evening you build your empire. So you work from 5 to 9, go to work, get paid, but when you get home, 6 to 9 in the evening, you start building that side hustle, that business of yours to build an empire. Guys, you are not going to be... welcome back, everyone. If you want to finish watching that video, you can go to our YouTube channel. You can just search for I Retire. All of those videos, the short videos that I play in the middle, they are available there. So if you were cut off just when it started becoming interesting, then you are welcome to go there and go and watch those videos, and also subscribe to our channel for all the new content that we do share, and some financially raw, which is real, authentic wisdom. So let's talk about the 4% rule. So the 4% rule that they have here is a way to calculate very simply how much capital you would need to replace a certain amount of income. Now, we have a much simpler way. I'm going to read through this and then I'll give you our one, which is much, much simpler to understand. So it says, traditionally, financial advisors, savers, and retirees have relied on the 4% rule when working out how much to save for retirement and what kind of annual income retirement savings would provide, said Discovery. This method determines the lump sum investors needs to provide an adequate annual income when they retire. If retirees are to withdraw 4% of their savings annually, adjusting for inflation every year thereafter, their savings would last at least 30 years. Discovery provides the following example. Assume you are retiring today with a final salary of 480,000 Rand a year and need a replacement ratio of 90% of your final salary. 90% of 480,000 is 432,000, and to ensure you do not use all of your retirement capital in 30 years, 432,000 should be 4% of your total savings. This means you would need 10.8 million Rand saved to draw 4% or 432,000 Rand annually. Well, we have a rule that is simpler to do. It's called the rule of 300. What that rule says is, whatever income you want to generate on a monthly basis, you just multiply that income times 300, and that will give you approximately how much capital you would need in today's money terms to generate that income. So if we look at this example of 432,000 divided by 12, that gives us an income of 36,000 Rand per month. And we multiply that by 300, and guess what? It gets to 10.8 million Rand. So it's exactly the same calculation, just much simpler. The whole 4% of this, just see how much income you need on a monthly basis, multiply it by 300, and it will give you roughly how much capital you would need. The challenge, though, is that that income is in today's money terms. What about if you're only retiring in 10 years or 20 years or 30 years? Now, we have a rule of tens that we add to that, which says that for every 10 years, at an inflation rate of about 6%, at every 10 years, your income or your value of your money halves, or you have to have double the income for the same value. So if you want to earn 30,000 Rand a month in today's money terms, in 10 years you would need 60. In 20 years you would need 120,000. And then you can multiply that by the rule of 300 to give you how much capital you would need in 20 years. You can then go look at that capital and compare it to what your estimated values are on your retirement annuities and your pension fund, and then you don't sleep for the next 6 months, because you will see how far removed the two are from one another. Now, in South Africa, where rates and dividend yields are low but high enough to sustain the rule, the applicability of the 4% rule remains undecided as the financial climate could change, unlike in 1990, where it came to be in the US when interest rates were much higher than currently. Tracy Jensen, the product architect at 10x Investments, said that although the 4% rule still applies to retirement investing, it needs to be applied uniquely in South Africa as more of a broad guideline to help people make decisions in a complex environment. So what they're actually saying in that article or that paragraph is they're actually saying nothing. It just says that it's not 100% accurate, which we know in any case. I don't know why they put that paragraph in there in the first place. So how to mitigate the effects of inflation? Well, most retirement funds have investment strategies that aim to grow savings by more than inflation. For example, 4 to 5% real returns over long periods, 30 to 40 years, said Langer of Alexander Forbes Research. Now, I've been in this industry for 23 years, and I can almost guarantee you that you are not getting 4 to 5% real return on your retirement savings in the long run, on a retirement annuity or a pension fund. I still want to see this unicorn that they work with. This they're living in a world of freaking rainbows and unicorns, because this is not the real returns in the real world that we've seen over the last quarter of a century. It's just not. What that means is, if inflation is 6%, your actual net return on your investment needs to be 10% or 11%. That is after cost. Now, I'm very, very sorry. Even the equity funds are not even getting close to that before cost. Then cost still has to come off. Then advisors' fees still have to come off. If you got 5% gross return, not real return, not inflation plus 5, actual 5% return on your investments in your retirement annuities, you were actually one of the lucky ones. So this is complete wishful thinking. So suppose investment growth manages to meet or exceed its objective. I'm very sorry, it's not going to meet or exceed that objective. Inflation is generally not a concern, as the actual value of savings is being maintained and a reasonable amount of growth is achieved over the long term. She stressed that the higher the inflation, the more challenging it is for investment growth to meet real returns, especially over short periods. In addition, there is an inverse relationship between bond yields and the cost of pension. The higher the bond yields, the lower the cost of purchasing an annuity from an insurer. This can be an advantage for someone retiring. So bond yields is basically companies that buy bonds from large companies or governments, and the government then pays interest on those monies that were lent to them. And a lot of the annuity insurance companies that sell annuities, they invest very heavily into bonds to generate that ongoing income. And if bond yields are high, you can get a higher income for the money that you have available. Bond yields are affected by interest rates. As interest rates change, charges are typically used as a mechanism to manage inflation within target ranges. So as we see now, when inflation starts increasing, they increase the interest rates so that there's less money in the economy to spend. Therefore, people make less debt. Therefore, the economy slows down. And because of the slowdown, the inflation rate starts coming down. Increasing retirement age. So Alexander Forbes note that the deciding to retire at the age of 65 rather than 55 can almost double a member's replacement ratio. Again, people that do normal savings, that think they're going to be able to retire at 55, also believe in the tooth fairy. They believe in Santa Claus. You're not going to save yourself into retirement at age 65, and you are definitely not going to save yourself into retirement by the age of 55. So based on their findings, retirees are only achieving a replacement ratio of 26.7%. This is significant, as retiring 4 years earlier could mean a reduction of approximately 10% in one's replacement income. So yes, if you take that extra 10 years between 55 and 65, or even 65 to 70, it makes a huge difference, because time is either your best friend or your worst enemy. Most times it is our worst enemy. This is significant given the already low average replacement ratio. Many retirees with long service still achieve a low replacement ratio at retirement. The impact of retiring at various ages is illustrated below for new member after age 25 and contributing at 12.9% of salary. So what this graph shows, for the people on Berg Stereo that can't see the picture, it shows what the replacement ratio is. I don't know why they chose 12.9%. That sounds like a very random percentage. But if you retire at 25 and you contribute 12.9%, at what age, how much of your replacement, your salary have you replaced? Now, at 65, you would have replaced 56% of your salary. At age 60, 41%. At age 55, 30%. So that 10 years takes you up from 30% to 56%. Okay, guys, and that is the article. Again, my problem with this is all they focused on is saving. So you have to save this, you have to save enough, you have to save earlier. All of this is built around savings and hoping for returns of 4 to 5% over inflation. So real returns of 4 to 5%, which I haven't seen in my life. So how do we solve this? Now, firstly, you need to understand that you're not going to save yourself into retirement. Savings alone is not the answer. It is only a part of the solution. It is not the solution. How I explain it to people is, if you look at a wall and that is your retirement wall, savings is not the wall. We've been taught that savings is the wall, but it's not. It's only a few of the bricks that you use to build the wall. It's not the wall. But the problem is we've been taught that that's the wall. So we keep our whole life trying to build this wall with our savings bricks. We then get to retirement and our wall is only halfway built. Now what that means is it's not that savings was wrong, it was just incomplete. So you need to use other bricks to build your wall as well. So what we teach people is there's 3 assets. Savings is focused on capital assets. So you invest in some kind of a capital investment, whether it's a retirement annuity, pension fund, so to build up capital, and then you use that capital to retire. But that's, again, it's incomplete. You need to use 3 types of assets, not just one type of asset. And those 3 types of assets is, firstly, business assets, of which you are a business asset as well. And next week I'll talk a little bit more about this. Business assets. Secondly, you need to use capital assets. But when you use your capital asset you don't use because it's the solution. You use it because it's the stepping stone to one of the other assets. So your capital asset is only a parking spot until you are ready to move that capital into one of the other assets. And that's the third asset, is fixed assets. Fixed assets are assets that generate income as a result of the asset, not what anybody does in the asset. So you want to use all 3 of those assets. You can't just use one of those assets. So next week's show, I'm going to talk about how do we solve this? How do we solve the challenges about retirement? These statistics that we've spoken about, that is so shocking. And if you are serious about not becoming a statistic, if you really want to help yourself, don't miss next week's show, because I'm going to talk about exactly how we can get you to also retire comfortably. Guys, it was great to chat with you. I'm going to show a short video again, the last one, which talks about how to spot or be careful of financial scams. So just listen to it. There's a lot of people out there that corners you with investment opportunities, business opportunities. You have to be aware. Lots of people lose money. So yeah, enjoy, and see you guys all next week again. Okay, the next point I want to make is be careful of financial scams. Guys, there's so many scams out there. Business opportunity scams, investment opportunity scams. Educate yourself. Understand the difference between a pyramid scheme, a Ponzi scheme, and a legitimate network marketing operation. Understand how investments work. So we've got a video on our YouTube channel, I Retire, that you can go see. Just search for how to spot a financial scam. It's a video I did a couple of years ago, and it explains exactly how financial scams work, the questions you can ask to determine if something is a financial scam. So go and watch that video and make sure that you don't get involved with these. All the hard work that you've done, all the things that you've built can be wiped out in an instant if you get involved in a financial scam that's going to cost you a lot of money. And it's important, or we tend to try and blame somebody else. Well, it was my best friend's cousin that told me that this thing is going to work. It's his fault. Guys, it's not his fault. It is your own fault for allowing yourself to be fooled into it and not educating yourself. Go educate yourself. We've got a question from Fricky. He says, if I start working now and don't have any debt, but want to get a loan or even a cell phone, the companies that I want to get a loan or cell phone account say that I need to open at least a clothing account to build credit. But why can't I build credit with a cell phone account? Yeah, Fricky, it's one of those. It's like what we've explained to the interns as well. You can't get a job if you don't have experience, and you can't get experience if you don't have a job. So you can't get credit if you don't have a credit account, and you can't build a credit record without any credit. So why they say open a clothing account is because the qualification to get a clothing account is so much lower. They just give it to anybody. So it's the easiest account to open before you can open a cell phone account. So if that is the case, you can either look at getting a credit card through the bank. Like I said earlier, don't go into the negative, but it still gives you that credit record. Or go and open a clothing account, buy something that is worth 200 Rand, pay it off at the end of the month, and then just keep that account open, which will start giving you a credit record. It's not about not having credit. It's about what you do with the credit once you have it, because that is the problem. They open a credit card or clothing account with Edgar's, and Edgar's gives them credit of 5,000 Rand. So what they do is, well, I need a clothing account, I need a credit to build my credit record. So they go and they immediately buy 5,000 Rands worth of clothing. And now suddenly they sit with that expense that they have to pay. Now it becomes an interest-bearing credit account, etc., etc. So it's about strategizing. You can use, and there's certain rules that we're going to play within. It's like rugby. When you play rugby, there's certain rules. You can kick against the rules. You can moan that the rules aren't working. You can say it's not fair. Doesn't matter. That is the rules. So play within the rules, but then use those rules to your own benefit. And the best way to do that is by understanding how the rules work. So it's all about educating yourself again. So if they say, well, you need a clothing account to open to get a mobile phone, get a clothing account. But understand why you are getting it. You're not getting it to buy that new pair of red shoes. You are buying it for the purpose of creating a credit record. So use it, get your credit record, and then get rid of it. Okay, I hope that answers your question. Okay.
Financially raw, real, authentic wisdom with Lourens from Retire Rich and Happy.